Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I am your host, Ellie.
And I'm Morley.
And we are so excited to have you here with us today. Danny and I discussed, the topic that we were really going to go into. And I feel like if there's ever a time where we can really dive into how this work has assisted us through our wounding, I feel like this is the week to do that because for me, at least, May was a hell of a month. I felt like I truly died and I was rebirthed in so many ways. And the only reason I think I came out intact was because of the work that we have been, taught at MSU. And it really gave me the tools to navigate what was going on within me. And so I'd love to dive into that. But I know you as well have been going really into your pain and really alchemizing and transforming. So, what's the journey been like for you? I know it's been a crazy last 3-4 weeks for us.
Yeah, my journey has shifted a lot because originally I was in Colorado and I've came up to northern Wisconsin, stay at a family lake house during May, which the weather's not great. Like we've had a little bit of good weather, but I've been coming up here to really go inside myself, to really go in. I've had very limited contact with any family, like physically coming up to stay here. And so it's really allowed me a lot of alone time to really, really apply the teachings that I've been trying to master over the last 6 months, 6-7 months with MSU. And yeah, it's worked.
Yeah.
And some major shifts have happened in my healing journey, some major changes. I can feel my energies changing, transforming, upgrading. My body itself, which I'll get into later, is as well having a lot of physical symptoms. And I know that's the same for Ellie as well. So I know we're going to get into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's been May's been one hell of a month.
Yeah.
And I know that it's there's a big thing ahead for me as well. Another part of my healing journey, which I won't get into on this podcast. So it's been a big month of spring, new change. It's felt like every season in 1 month here in one way, because there's been death, rebirth, constantly flowing around through the cycles, and it's been one hell of a ride, and I'm just grateful I had the skills to hold on. So why don't you take us away by starting us off with what you've been going through? Because this week we are talking about the power within.
Yeah.
So how did you find it? How did you find the power within?
I think for me, there's a lot of different parts to this, but I'll say it in a very vulnerable way. I was involved with somebody and it ended, and the ending of that, really, I knew that what the universe was doing. The universe was like, hey, so we've really got to look at these attachments that you have to love and to relationship and to men, and this codependency, and how you show up for yourself when it comes to the prospect of love. And I think that I was really naive before this person came into my life, because I was like, I'm ready for a relationship, and like, I'm ready for love. And the universe was like, eat your words, sis, because you ain't. And I think one of the biggest things I learned is, how can you be ready for a relationship with another being if you don't even if you haven't cultivated the relationship within self? And I, for so long in all of my life, all I've ever wanted, I used to dream about, like, people, how like people dream about like marriage and they think about like the wedding dress, and I've always just thought about, where's my partner? Like I just want to love him, and I want to grow with him, and I want to build a life and all these things. And I realize now that that was just like my ego attaching to something else, because it was avoiding me going within. And so when this person came and everything happened and then they left, I was stuck with myself. And I live in a part of New York where, like, yes, I'm close to like my family and friends, but like far enough where I could really just go within. And, you know, you said something about alone time. And I think for us as HSPs, it is really vital for us to be in those moments of solitude, to understand what is moving through us, to understand why the universe is presenting these certain gifts. And so the first layer for me was the first week of the ending of this relationship was I was just angry. I was so angry, not even angry at the other person. I was so angry at myself, because the first layer that I moved through was the realization that I just had abandoned myself, because this is not the first time that I showed up in a romantic relationship needing it. You know what I mean? Like, let's solidify this. Let's make it now. I don't care. I don't care. I don't need to know everything about you. I know it's love and we're going in, right? And now reflecting back on that, it's like, that was so much of my inner child, right? So much of her wanting to just be held, her wanting to be loved, her wanting to be carried through in this life, because all of my life I felt so alone and felt like I always needed somebody. And then the prospect of this person coming in was like, let's do this now. And like, now that I'm in this place of power, I look back and I'm like, Ellie, what was that? Because that's not even you. And I think that was the first week of me too, of like realizing that there were so many aspects of me. When I would come to my real self, I'd be like, who is that? Because that's not me. And then realizing, oh, that's the wounded me, and the wounded me showing up like that, right? But then understanding too that this person that came into my life, I was a gift for them as much as they were a gift for me, right? And that's what we're doing. We're like Santa Claus out here. We're just gifting each other. And so the first week was looking at my self-abandonment and really being like, never abandon yourself again, because it will bring you right here into this brokenness. And this brokenness is so familiar to me, you know, like always wanting other people to fill my cup. I literally imagined like my little inner child, like chasing this man with a cup and being like, can you fill it? Can you fill it? And him being like, no. And it's like, why? Why can't you fill my cup? And then understanding it's because, baby, you're supposed to fill your cup. You know, you're supposed to be the one that fills these empty voids that you keep trying to place with other people and things. And so the first layer for me was the self-abandonment. And then the pain was so visceral for me. It was so painful that it started making me question, is this all mine? And then came the week of ancestral and karmic, right? Where I started to realize, wait a minute. It's not like I was married to this man for 10 years. Like, I was going through pain, Danny, as if I had been married to this man for 10 years and we had kids and a life. And when I went into the pain and I started really working with all the coaches, all the other certified coaches who really carried me through this time. And like, you were there, a lot of people were there for me and helped me coach it. One of the first coaches that I worked with took me down an ancestral wound. And the only thing she said to me as I was bawling, she said, they're all here, hug them and tell them you have this. And as soon as she said that, I knew she was talking about my grandmother and my grandfather and like the lineage, because I have codependency very deep within my generational, brought down every generation. And so I knew, wow, I am here to break codependency for my ancestors, because if I have ever a kid, I would never want my daughter to reenact my wounding when it comes to love and giving oneself to somebody else like this. And I knew that I was here to break it. And so that was the second layer. Then the third layer was that I had a karmic wound of codependency. It was a past life that Rachel Fiori, our teacher and our mentor and our leader, really took me through. And in this past life, I was a little boy ripped away from my mother's arms. And the vision she got was just like white knuckling, screaming, like, please don't do this. Please don't take me away from my safety. And I was taken away from her. And then she said, every life after that, I've carried this karmic wound of codependency. And when she was walking me through that healing, my body was heaving, like convulsing, because I knew, I didn't remember this past life, but I could feel my body's remembrance of this. And then when that moment happened, something within me shifted, because now I knew that I just healed, dissolved, and alchemized. And now the rest is up to me. And then the rest of the weeks were really me diving into me and loving the blame, the self-hatred, because the mental programs for me, like, why'd you do this? What's wrong with you? Like, you're so dumb. Like, you always do this. You're so pathetic. And going in there and loving these programs and loving these parts of me and then transforming them into power, and then understanding, like, I never need to ever bow down to anybody. I don't need to lay the red carpet for any man, and that the only person that I need to do that for is me, and understanding that this is coming back to self. This is not about looking outside of self. This journey for me, I know this whole life for me is me, 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 me. And I had to lose myself in a relationship to find myself again. And so it was a big one.
Yeah. Wow, what a great share.
Yeah. It was a big one. Mm-hmm.
And what I want everyone listening to understand is we're talking this episode about finding the power within. And our power in life, our power, especially as coaches, it comes from our ability to go into pain.
Yes.
So imagine there is pain within you, and it's creating all of these programs, the programs of how you think, how you feel, and how you behave.
Mm-hmm.
And as it's creating all these programs, the work we do is look at the programs, go in and try and find the pain. But what happens is most people are disconnected. This is one of my big ancestral wounds, is like powerlessness. So just not having the power to go in and look at that pain. And what we do is we come up with all the ego comes up with all these very clever ways, these clever programs of avoiding the pain. Yep. Let me change, the big one that I've always done, let me change myself, which is what you were talking about as well. Let me change myself to avoid feeling this lack of power. Let me give myself to you and give, please, here, have my love, as you were saying, in order for them to give love, so that we don't have to look at how powerless we feel. And our power comes from our ability to then stop, become aware of it, and then go inside our heart and feel that pain with every cell of our body, and let that pain know it's okay that you're there. I see what you're doing. I see the programs. I understand from a higher perspective now why this program got created, this program of codependency or lack of self-worth or whatever it may be that's showing up for you in your life right now, and then being able to truly love it and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And that is when everything starts to change. That's when we start to transform.
Yes.
And grow.
Yes.
And it's been very clear working with you and seeing you going through your process that you've really connected to and found this power you have within.
Yes.
So talk more. I'd love to hear more about the pain that you were experiencing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And connecting to it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the ending of this sparked all of my fears, like fear of loneliness, fear of not being enough, fear of unworthiness. Cause it's not like this is the first person that's like, really made me feel sad. This is a pattern in my life, right? Where I just show up and I'm like, here. And then it never works out the way that I want. And then who do I destroy? Me, because then I think it's my fault. There's something wrong with me. And in reality, there's nothing wrong with me. I was just in my wounding. And so now that I have so much self-awareness, how do I go in and love this? And let me tell you something. It hurts so bad because the mental programs were full, like they were on fire. They were trying to drive the car like every single moment. And it was the awareness of, oh, here's a program that's playing out. Let me go in and love this program. Oh, here's loneliness knocking on my door. Let me go in and love this loneliness, and not running to everybody and everything. I mean, something that I wanted to do was like call my mom, I think that's something that we're programmed to do, is like when we're sad, we call mom, but then calling mom never fills me. And how can she meet me at an emotional level that I'm at when she hasn't reached that place? And then it was this thing again of like, you're doing it again. You're doing the thing of reaching out to somebody to give you the love that you are seeking within yourself. And so all I did was spend time with my pain, of like just literally sitting with it, not doing anything to numb, not smoking weed, not trying to go out, not trying to do anything, but feel all of this. And as you feel the pain, now go into it with your light and open your heart to this. And the moment my heart started opening up, I could literally feel my light, understanding that I am divinity, that I am divine light, and I am love. And I'm out here letting these lower frequencies and all these mental programs eat me alive when I'm the light. And that's when the power started really shining, because I realized, baby, the only reason you thought you were weak is because the programs were on the throne. And now you're kicking the programs off the throne. And now remember who you are. And then it's this feeling of, let me eat you all up, because that's how powerful I am. And the moment that's how I started to see how I'm an alchemist, is because here's the program of unworthiness. And I look at it and I love it. And I'm like, who's unworthy here? Not me. And then my light shines and just devours that program. And then how can that program amount to my light? How can that play in the same ballpark as the beingness of who I am? Do you know what I'm saying? And that's when the power started really coming into me. And then this moment of, all I've ever done is like bat my pretty little eyes at men, like, look at me, look at me. And now I'm in this place of, I'll never look at a man like that. I'll never look twice at a man like that, because I don't need that anymore. I don't need it. Society tells me I need this. My mind tells me you need this. I don't need that. My trueness, the beingness, doesn't need any of that. So if my beingness doesn't need any of that, then who can I really be in this life?
And if you ever did, you now have the awareness to go, I'm doing it again.
Exactly.
Let me go back in, because there is still a part of me that I need to love.
Yes.
And that's okay. And we don't shame that part of us
Exactly.
for wanting that, oh, look, the look at me, we just go in and we love it, whatever it is, because it is there for a reason. And it's there to show us back that we need to come back to our whole self, our love.
Yes.
And so kind of what I was getting from everything you were saying there was that the first step in your journey was to really connect to your light, really connect and really understand that you are a divine being and you have this divine power, and we are gifted this as humans on this earth, that when we come down and we are created, that our unique soul has the power to shine this light. So first one has to connect and understand that is you, that is all of us. And then being able to take that into the pain. That's step two. So as you've been growing your power to go, and it's obviously a process, right? It's not as simple as like step one, step two, like, oh, I do this first, then I do that.
Right.
It's, you've clearly grown your light and you have connected to it. And now you're able to really bring it into these parts of you that need it, that are feeling pain. And then together, that process is what allows for the transformation for you to rise.
Yes. And I think it's important for everybody out there. This is not like a one and done deal. You know what I mean? It's not like you go into your pain, you love it, and then it's done. It depends on how big this wound is. And so for me, it's also the acceptance and the honoring, because my ego wants to tell me, well, I thought you were healed. I thought we already transformed this. And then going in with love even more, being like, nobody said that. That's what you're saying. This, however long this takes, I am in acceptance of it, because now I know what to do when the remnants still appear, and I still have remnants for sure. I'm not perfect at all. I know there's still a lot for me to alchemize, but the point is that I'm alchemizing. The point is that it's transforming, and that's what's shifting me. It's not the pressure of it needs to go all now. No, that's not love either. You see how this works? It's really wild, but it is the awareness of the every moment that is truly the gift of all this. And so I'm just in this place right now where I realize that the more powerful I get within me, the more powerful I can be for others as I guide them through their journeys, you know? And it really became apparent to me, like in class when I was coaching somebody and their wound was also codependency and like wanting love from women. And all of a sudden I could show up in all my power because, well, I've been alchemizing this. And now I know how to really be in this energetic place to provide for you. It was like my higher soul was like, all right, girl, you got this because we've been doing this. And then I could show up so powerfully for him. And then he was alchemizing and transforming. And then the feeling that I got was, this is what we're here to do. The more we alchemize within us, the stronger we become. And then that's how we ricochet to the world, this beautiful being conduits and being guides for others as they go through, you know, their road of healing and transforming.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I watched that class back, and let me tell you, folks, wow, it was like lightning bolts were coming out of her eyes, and you could feel the energy flowing through her. It was coming down from above, and boom, it was hitting one of our fellow coaches right in the heart as he was exploding. And you could viscerally feel it, even though it was just a video replay. And it was magnificent to watch, and it's just very clear you've really internalized these teachings, and you've really spent the time actually doing the work, because that level of power only comes from you going into your own pain, you going in and doing the actual work. And this is what we're here to do at MSU. We're not here to guide you from a place of inauthenticity.
Right.
We're here to take you into a place that we've actually already been.
Right.
We've already felt this pain. Granted, not everyone's wounds are going to be perfectly the same. Like you had this perfect example where it's like codependency, but we go in and we love the parts of ourselves that are showing up in pain, so we can help you get there too, because that's all that it is.
Yes.
There's pain and there's love. And when we bring our love to the pain, and it all changes.
Yeah.
It all changes.
For sure.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I know that I know I started to touch on this a little bit about like the physical symptoms. I'd love for you to get more like what you've been going through, like since these healings that you've been doing, and like what you've been feeling in your body.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have definitely talked about this. And I think that after I did that healing in class, I really felt the divine feminine roaring in me, right? And that's the beauty of the divine feminine, is we go straight into the darkness and pierce it with light and grab everything that doesn't need to be in there. And I felt this energy shooting through me. And afterwards, Rachel was like, you're not going to feel great after this. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? I feel awesome. You know, and she's like, no, you're not going to feel great, because now your body's upgrading, you're ascending. And so your physical body has to catch up with now how much light you're holding within you. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. And then 2 days later, I went to bed, and for 7 hours throughout the night, I went through excruciating pain. I could feel my body, something was happening to me, and it was so painful. I felt body aches, body chills, sweating, the most insane migraine, the most insane headache. And then the next day, I literally felt like somebody went into me, beat me up, and then left without, like, you know, saying goodbye or anything, you know? And I messaged Rachel and I was like, is this what you're talking about? Because I literally feel like I'm on death's door. And she's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And so the ascension symptoms have been visceral. And it's no joke. This work that we're doing is no joke. And I realize now every time I do a big healing on somebody, I start getting pain. You know, like the other day I did 2 big healings, and then my back was hurting and my lower back, and then I had to take Epsom salt baths, and I had to sleep early. And I was like, this is crazy. And then it comes down to, this is why you got to take care of yourself. Like intensely take care of yourself. And you were so sweet because you sent me electrolytes through the mail, because I really needed them, because I was really going through it. But I think the best part about this is, wow, like I really am ascending. Like I really am doing the work of the light, and I'm really doing the damn thing. And so as much as it physically hurts, it is emotionally, you can't even explain what this feels like. You know, you and I talked about, like, it feels very blissful and like almost like ecstasy and all this stuff, but like it really does feel like that. And we are not on drugs. We are literally just doing the work that is just upgrading us. And that's what our souls came here to do. And to feel the ascension is just, it's like nothing else.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're really in it right now, and it's hard to kind of convey to people that are not quite, not experienced something. And
Mm,
this might sound like new language to some people, using the words ascension. And um, what we have to convey is like these energy shifts that are happening at a cellular level.
yeah.
So like the entire body is going through an upgrade because you've just switched it over from like, it's like putting think about a light bulb, like, oh, we've been putting this amount of current through there previously, and all of a sudden you've just upgraded the system and the light bulb
Right.
smashes because there's too much energy. That's what's happening on a cellular level. Everything's breaking down.
Yes.
And then that allows, obviously, death allows rebirth.
Yes.
So when things, just like going to the gym, when you're hitting the gym hard, you're destroying the muscle. You're trying to destroy the muscle as much as you can so that when it grows back, it repairs and grows back stronger.
Yes.
And that is our power. We're doing this instead of on a physical level. We're talking about the energetics of our being, how our consciousness is. So instead of being at the lower levels, we're talking about rising everything.
Yes.
A teaching that came through the other day, I was watching one of the classes, and your reaction, Ellie, was absolutely priceless, because you were just like, you're just getting in.
I was feeling it.
It was the fact that like what we are doing at this level is going in and changing the consciousness of the programs that exist. So we're going into these wounds, and instead of everything has consciousness, everything, even tables and chairs, they have a certain level of consciousness, and we're going in to these programs, we're grabbing them at, say they're resonating at fear, and all we're doing is changing the consciousness to love.
Right.
And when we do that, the fear is still there, but instead of it vibrating at the level of fear and all these programs of fear coming off it, it's now vibrating at the consciousness of love. And so the programs that come out of love are obviously bliss and joy and ecstasy. And so this is where these ecstatic experiences come from, because the parts of us that were previously holding us down are now creating love, peace, joy, and eventually enlightenment.
Yes.
So this is how this whole system works, is we're just shining our light on things and changing like how it's not dead. The energy's still there. It's just transformed into something that is now serving us. So if you imagine taking everything, writing down everything in your life that that might have caused you harm in any way, and then being able to take it, it still exists, but now it comes from a place of love. That's what we're doing. And
it's so beautiful.
It causes these blissful states to arise. It causes the ecstasy. I had one last week where 2 hours I was going around, I felt like I was completely on ecstasy. It was incredible. I was dancing, I was flowing, I could feel everything flowing with me. It was really magical. I put on some of my favorite dance music and just had a party on my own, and it was truly wonderful. I had this deep sense, which I'll get to in a little bit, of just coming home to myself, of like, finally I've been working really hard all these years. I've been running into walls, like going down the wrong path and having to come back. And then eventually it felt like things aligned, and I've finally, like, I'm coming home. And it's such a great feeling.
It really is. It really is. And
have you had a moment where you felt like you came home this last month?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. I also went on this like an hour walk with my dog, and my friend sent me this song called There She Is. There She Is Again. And I just listened. That was the only lyric, and they were playing all these like beautiful like sound bats and all these things. And I had this moment where I was like, this is what it feels like. I feel like I've opened the door to come home. And to think that this is just the beginning of the arrival is so humbling and so exciting. And I realize now too, like when you are at this level of power, and the more you upgrade, the more that lower energies just cannot come with you anymore. And so I realized too, like I've been feeling like all the old fears, but then just feeling how fast they dissolve now, because we are truly embodying the love that we are. And so it's wild. It is
Yeah.
wild.
I,
I know that you've been working through a lot. Let's talk about that, Danny, because I know that you've shifted too, and spending all this time and like really going within has been massive for you.
yeah. It was like a calling to come here. I kept on having dreams of this place, which was kind of felt like a nudge from the universe to say, go there. And whenever I would feel deep into myself, it was like my intuition was saying, you need to go there early before the summer starts. This has been recorded in May. So I needed to come here early and really just be on my own. And I can look back now, and I've started to realize there were so many times that I booked trips. I went to Asia, and when I went to Asia, I was planning to go there for like a year, 6 months to a year. I ended up spending like 7 months there. But a week in, I fell into depression, and I kept on wondering, like, why did my depression and anxiety start when I went to go have the time of my life? Why would the universe do it like that? It's strange. As I worked through that over the last few years, I then decided last year to go on a trip to Peru and go do ayahuasca. And I went to this amazing retreat, and it was very healing. And then right after the retreat, I wanted to go to Machu Picchu, and I was hanging out a bit deeper in the jungle, and I got a parasite. It ended up being a really deadly parasite that I needed to go on a couple of courses of antibiotics to get rid of. And I'm still recovering from the gut the gut issues that I had from the antibiotics. But what it led me to see is that I kept on going for these trips, and these trips would show me in some energetic way that you're still putting the power, you're looking for something outside of yourself.
Right.
You're giving your power away.
Right.
And what you need to be doing is going in. Go in. And so this trip that I've made up to Minocqua in northern Wisconsin, it's really allowed me to go in. And it's the first time that I've really, really, really gone in. And so what does that look like? What does it mean to go in? What are we talking about here? What we're talking about is when we feel or think something, we notice that a program is coming up. Don't just become aware of it. Sit there, close your eyes, drop into your heart, and start investigating. Start getting curious about where this came from, about what the root of this was, and what pain is lying in there. What pain can I sense? What pain can I feel? What pain can I see? It all depends on our particular way of experiencing this world. For me, it's very felt. I know for other people, they go in and they can see things. And for me, it's way more feeling. So this past month has all been about feeling and going in. And the first big thing that came up was I was going on a bit of a journey, a guided journey with my soul and my heart. And it was bringing up these memories of me as a child. And it was a very freeing young child. And it was all about having like sexual feelings for another boy. And I was like, oh, this is odd that this is coming up. And the old me would have just brushed it under the rug. Oh, there's that again. I will not think about that right now. But the new me got very inquisitive and curious about what was being presented to me. So I went further in and started asking, what is this? And then I was seeing like a few times where I felt this way in my childhood. And it was very challenging to kind of like accept and be with. And then it took me to a time in Peru where I felt like this last year. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, there was that again. Like, okay. And then I started feeling into that and really having to come to the acceptance that since I was young, I've definitely been completely fluid with my sexuality, definitely more bisexual, at least bi-curious. But then it would take me to all the times that I would feel deep amounts of shame, which would particularly coming from my father. Now, that obviously that's his programming. I don't judge him for that. There's no blame. That's just how he was raised. But the things he would say would trigger me to feel like I wasn't accepted for what I was feeling. And so those feelings would get stuffed down because I was not willing to look at this part of me. And the more and more I would work on this, the more and more I started to understand, of course, my power is always going to be limited when I'm not willing to look at this shadow part of me. Of
Mm,
course. And I've always felt powerless. There's several ways that this comes out. And the main way that I was really starting to see that it was showing up in terms of masculinity was this part of me that I'm not willing to see made me feel like I wasn't masculine, because
mm,
masculine men aren't attracted to other men.
right.
Masculine men are attracted to women, and I am attracted to women, but I'm also occasionally attracted to men, and
Mm,
that's okay. And having to come to terms with that, especially in a society, where that's like not always okay.
mhm,
So that was extremely difficult. I had to process through a lot of shame and come to a lot of
mm,
love for my younger self.
mm.
And yeah,
Wow.
that was kind of like the big first wound that I've been dealing with.
Wow. Uh, First of all, beautiful, and I'm so happy for you that you got to this place. And I feel like when you first, when you first talked to me about this, you had you had an energy of like of power behind it. When you talked to me about this, it wasn't, I didn't feel any remnants of like shame or like I shouldn't be like this. It very much felt like this is me,
Hmm.
this is me. And I realized, like, oh my God, like the moment he loved that and the moment that he saw that and accepted that, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about that. It doesn't matter what dad thinks about it. It doesn't matter at all. But it was this moment where I saw you of like, oh, you just got a piece of yourself back. Like
Yeah,
you just got that piece back that you've been hiding for so long. And it's so beautiful. And I think for everybody at home, like this is the kind of work that we're doing shows us these parts of ourselves. And
yeah,
then it's the acceptance and the love that there's nothing wrong with that. That everyone that shamed you for that, that's their programs. It's got nothing to do with you. And then
yeah,
finding your power within that is just so, I love it
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
Um, because this journey is all about that. It's about going back into ourselves and finding these parts of us that were kept in the shadow or
Mhm.
kept in the darkness.
Mm.
And then being able to take them back and like, oh, this is me. Like this
Mhm.
is mine. Um, and yeah, the power that I felt increase in me just from this particular wound was huge.
Yes.
And it was a wound that had caused me to feel a very big disconnect with the masculine, which now
Mm.
I understand why. Like I,
Mm.
I I feel it why, and I completely understand why, because I didn't fully feel like, even though I was a man, that I was masculine, because I was hiding this part of me that made me feel like I wasn't.
Right.
So, of course, I'm not going to be able to fully connect to other masculine energies
Right.
when I'm not fully connected to the
Of
masculine
course.
myself.
Mhm.
Of course, that
Mhm.
makes so much sense. And
Mhm.
so it's really allowed me to accept myself for who I am, which allows me
Mm.
to accept everyone else for who they are.
Yes.
And yeah, so really brought a lot of power back that way. That
Also,
was that
yeah.
was the first big healing. Go ahead.
Also, I know, on top of that though, because of this, you've been experiencing a lot of physical a lot of physicality. Like you told me the other day, you're like, I just can't stop moving. My body won't stop moving. And then you'll show me and I'm like, yeah, you won't stop moving. So can you explain a little bit about what that experience has been like?
Yeah. So today was the first day in a while that I've really felt very grounded.
Mm.
What day are we on? It's Wednesday. Yeah, it's
It's
been like
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay, it's been like 9 days of or 8 days of a
Yeah.
constant flow of energy that's been flowing through me. And when I wouldn't flow with it, if I would stand still, it felt like the energy was doing this inside of me, and it would make me feel like I was on a boat. And
Well,
so, because it was the way that I understood it, was like the energy's moving in me. So if I don't flow with it, I'm now out of balance,
well.
because this is coming through me whether I like it or not. So I have a
Mhm.
choice whether to go with it or and flow, which allows me to feel very like stable. But when I stopped still, it was like everything was being thrown around. It would make me feel really nauseous.
Wow.
And I started understanding that this thing is guiding me to things. And so I started kind of communicating with it, and asking it for guidance, and asking it for just allow it to just flow through me and heal what it needs to heal. It was guiding me into positions like a cross-legged forward fold. That was the one that it kept taking me to. And as it was doing this, I could feel the tension in my body release and come up my spine. And every time I would be sat there for maybe, like, it would have me there for 4 or 5 hours if it wanted. It probably, but physically I couldn't do that because it was really stretching and hurting my body. So I would do maybe like 20 minutes, or every 5 minutes it would kind of like make my spine flow, and it would, and I could feel the knots. And it makes a lot of sense because physically I was working with a few physical therapists, and I worked with 2 physical therapists, a running coach, and a mobility coach, and none of them could understand what the hell was going on with my body, why I couldn't get rid of this tension and increase my I've been having problems with my AT band for 4 years. And it turns out now I can feel very clearly that last Wednesday there was an activation. I was working with one of the other coaches, and there was an activation in my stomach, and it felt like an energy started to flow through me. I've understood this. Some people call it like a Kundalini awakening. Our teacher calls it more the divine feminine. And this awakened within me, I think, as I've been moving through these different wounds. And it would come through, and it would guide me into all these places of healing that I needed to release, and this tension that I'd been holding on to for 20 odd, probably like 25 years. My system from my childhood was in fight or flight. It was white knuckling, as you said. It was like, so scared, like on a subconscious level, it was so scared, and it finally let go.
Wow.
And when it did, I was finally be able to stretch, and all my muscles were starting to release, and the energy was flowing freely, and it's felt really amazing. I feel lighter. But again, it came with pain, because as I was being guided into these positions, I had to surrender into the physical pain that was showing up, and I had to love it and thank it and say, pain, you've kept me safe. I know you were there to just make sure I survived. You were scared when you were younger, and it's okay now. I love you, and you can release. And I would communicate and talk to it and allow it to just move through me. But it was another example of like, to get to love, you have to go through pain. So for me to get to my physical, like, optimal state, I had to still go through the pain that I've been holding on to, whether it be emotional, mental, or physical pain. It's still pain, and it still needed to be loved, and it still needed to be released. So that's kind of what I've been flowing through. And I've noticed, since this has been happening, I wear a Garmin and I track my heart rate variability, and I'm hitting 100% on my recovery scores every night, because I'm going in and I'm sleeping so deeply, because my body's finally at rest, finally, after all these years.
Yes. And I think, that's so important for all of us on the healing journey. I know, you and I spoke about like how much noise we used to surround ourselves with, the constant noise of like people, and got to do this and got to have plans and all of these things. And it's such a dishonoring to ourselves. And it's only when we take that time to really, really spend with us and go in is when all of this magic happens. And so I've seen the shift in you. I've felt the shift in you. And, you and I are very yin and yang in terms of like, I feel like we're always moving through similar things at the same time. And one of the biggest things that you and I learned this month was truly like, we can only be a light for others depending on how much light is shining through us. And we must go through the pain. We are warriors, so we must go through the darkness. But you don't have to go blindly into the darkness. You are the light. So shine the light as you walk through the darkness. And
shine that light.
shine that light. And when you get out at the end of the tunnel, I mean, you are not the same being you were when you first entered that tunnel.
Mm-mm.
And it is
No, not at
wild.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so crazy.
The last story I want to share
Yeah.
is, so I was going through this experience last week, and I ended up, I was really concerned about being codependent, because this is a big wound of mine as well, about being codependent and how that translates with powerlessness. But I ended up on a call with one of the other coaches, who's a little further along the path, and he was guiding me. And I was actually very grateful he didn't. We had just a free flowing conversation. He didn't like take me into my own pain.
Mm.
And what I started to realize is that what I was really being challenged right now is, can I actually guide myself into my own pain? So that night, I managed to, from him, he gave me enough divine masculine to ground the feminine that was flowing through me, enough that I could actually drop in, because this energy was so strong, it was flowing so much, it was struggling to drop into my heart. And Rachel said, just allow it to flow through. Don't try and force a heart connection. So I managed to get a moment where I was still enough to drop in, and I started feeling into what I was feeling. And what I was feeling was a mass amount of like nervousness and anxiety, which was very odd. So I went in, and instead of having a coach be the one to guide me in, I just guided myself, and I said, open. And I started talking to myself in the same way that I would coach a client. I would just say to myself, and it was magical, because I allowed the nervousness to open, and it took me to this vision of when I was a child and I was 5 years old, around that age. And I was at this particular place at Mattersey Priory, and watching the RAF race go on, and my father was in the RAF race. And it was at that moment that I really realized that was the moment that I felt like I didn't matter to my father. And it was then that I realized, like, that was the moment that I really felt I needed more, and that there was a void, and that I was, you said, holding up of love, saying, Father, love me. And it's not that he didn't love me, he loves me. But the way that I needed love at that moment as a 5-year-old, he wasn't showing up. And that's okay. That's nothing against him, because it was just like my needs of what I needed at that time. And this is why it's impossible for us as children to go through childhood unless we have Jesus as a father, because our parents are going to have programs, and they're going to miss something. They're going to miss a part of you. Like, there's just a one moment that you may have where you miss that moment where your child needs you, and it's internalized in them is, oh, he doesn't love me, and not, and or at least enough in that moment. So I had to really go in, and I went in and in and in, and I would go into the wound. And I would find the wound, and I would open and love it. And I would say, wow, I can't believe I felt that deeply about this. And then I would go, I wonder if I actually feel more. And I went in again, and there was more. And I went in again, and there was more and more. And I was amazed by the amount of pain that was in this wound that I had absolutely no idea was there. I had no idea this was living within me. I always thought mine and my father's relationship was good, and it was what it was, which it is in its own right. But I didn't realize that all these years I was carrying this longing to be loved by him way more than I could ever imagine, way more. And so by finally taking the time to go in and love this child that needed it, and I had this super profound moment where I was talking to him and communicating to him, and he was going like, thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad. And I was like, Danny, it's giving me chills. I'm not your dad. I'm you. And he was like, what? you're me. And I was like, yeah, it's me. It's you. And it was like, he just couldn't believe it. And I was like, this feeling you have right now, this feeling of love and this feeling of power, it is you that is doing this.
Oh.
It isn't, I'm not your dad. I'm you.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
it dawned on him that this power that I was showing him is not coming from his father, and it doesn't come from his mother. It comes from him. And he just couldn't see it yet, and he wasn't
Wow.
connected to it. And to get
Wow.
even deeper, I realized that the future self of me was going into the past and experiencing this in the present. Therefore, there is no future and there is no past. There is only now. And I finally understood that teaching, because I, in this present moment, was also
Yes.
doing work in the future and at the past at the same time.
Yes.
I know that might get a little complicated for people thinking about that, but
Yes.
it dawned on me and I was like, holy crap.
Because
Like,
it's all
this is insane.
simultaneously happening at the same time.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything happens all at once.
Right.
Which is a way bigger concepts to try and wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But hopefully maybe that's a way that you can understand it, because the work that we do here at MSU, we go in and we work with the inner child, which occurs in the past.
Yes.
It also occurs in the future, where it's all happening right now.
Exactly.
And yeah, so it was a huge game changer, and I gave
Beautiful.
him as much love as he needed. And there was just a huge amount of power that came from that, because again, here is a part of me that was in pain from my youth that I didn't even know about. And it was this disconnection that I had with him and with the masculine, and with the acceptance of my father. So that was my story for today. Thank you for listening.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think just to let everyone at home, like, the work that Danny just did on himself, like, that's what it is. It's not, I need mommy's love and I need daddy's love and I need all these people to love me. It's like, even when you're a 5-year-old kid, you just remind the 5-year-old kid, you are the love. You are it. That's it. There's nowhere else to look, baby. It's you. It's you. And guiding people back to themselves. I mean, that's the work that we're here to do. And that's the work that we're doing individually. And so this is massive, guys. This is massive. And I hope that, me and Danny's story, as we work through our journeys and work through our wounds and come into our power, really inspires and resonates with you. And for anybody out there at home who wants to work with one of our amazing coaches at MSU, please jump at this opportunity. I'm telling you, if me and Danny did not jump at joining MSU, I don't really know where we would be at. I would probably be in my routine crying somewhere, with surrounded by a lot of things that I don't need. So this work is profound. And thank you so much for showing up for you, Danny. And thank me for showing up for me. And for everybody at home who's doing the work, love is the answer.
Love is the answer.
Love is the answer.
It always has been and it always will be. And the further we stray away from it, the further you've got to come back to it. So, and that's okay if you go down that path.
Yeah.
Because the path back to love, it's always waiting for you, and it'll always be here.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. Everybody at home, subscribe, rate, leave a comment, share this episode. And till next time, we will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.